This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
Good morning and welcome to Inside Texas Politics. We begin with the one seat the Dallas County Democrats badly want to win back. District Attorney. Two former judges running against each other in the March primary, Elizabeth Frizell and John Creuzot. But what separates them? On what issues do they differ? Those are among our questions for them, and joining the conversation as always is Bud Kennedy of the Star Telegram. Thanks for coming in.
John, good morning.
How are you doing? Good morning.
2 years ago, it was obvious many thought this office was a complete wreck. Republican Faith Johnson has seemed to stabilize it. What could you do in that position that she has not? We'll start with you, Judge.
Well, one of the first things I want to do within the first 100 days of being in office, if I'm elected district attorney, is restart DNA testing. I haven't seen any DNA testing over the past 4 years, and I think that's important because right now we're at 32 wrongful convictions in Dallas County. Number one in the nation. That's too many. And I want to make sure we're testing the DNA so that no one is wrongfully convicted because of an offense out of Dallas County.
Judge Creuzot, what can you do that, the DA is currently not doing?
Well, we need to redo and reconfigure the conviction integrity unit. Right now, it's just focused on old cases. And what I'd like to do is to put that in primacy in the office, and that is expand it in the number of people and also what it does. For example, when you talk about conviction integrity, that begins at arrest and that begins at charging. And that section should be involved in that and should oversee that. It also should oversee the appellate section, because when you talk about conviction integrity, you're talking about something that has now occurred in most instances. And we need that particular unit to oversee that so that we have a continuum all the way from start to finish of conviction integrity, and it should be in charge of training for all of the assistant DAs, because right now we have instances where assistant DAs aren't necessarily following the law. For example, we have one who's currently employed who was found to have withheld evidence. It's been a court finding, but that person is still employed, and that's something that I would not tolerate or put up with.
You both mentioned similar themes here too. This race hasn't made a lot of local headlines. Let's talk about how you're different from each other.
Well, I think one of the main differences is, although I've been a prosecutor for the Department of Justice, I was a defense lawyer for 13 years. And when I first ran in 2002 and 2006, there were no attorneys who were former defense lawyers who became judges. The only way you became a judge was from the DA's office. And I always wondered, because you're supposed to take that defense hat off and that prosecutor hat off, why couldn't defense lawyers become judges? So I ran back in 2006 when the group of Democrats won and swept the courthouse. And I think that's one of the differences, because I've tried every type of case that can be tried as a defense lawyer for 13 years, from rape, robbery, murder, capital murder, and also family law. I've done child support, CPS cases, and a lot of times people don't understand that the DA's office is in 60 courts in Dallas County, not just criminal, but also civil, family, and juvenile, and I've tried all types of juvenile cases as well.
Judge Creuzot, how are you different from Judge Frizell?
Well, I've got 7 years of prosecutorial experience, just short of it, a year and a half of defense work, and then 22 years as a state district judge. And that's an important thing, because during that 22 years, we started what's called the Divert Court program. It was the first rehabilitation-focused program in the state of Texas. We took that program and expanded it to over 300 type programs. And what we've done with that concept of rehabilitation instead of incarceration, is we've closed 8 prisons. It's expanded. We train judges, we train parole officers, we trained probation officers, we trained the entire system. We expanded it to DWI courts, to family violence courts, to all types of problem-solving courts. And as a result, for the efforts and the outcomes of Divert Court, we've actually changed the tenor of criminal justice in the state of Texas. Texas is now a model for criminal justice reform across the United States, but it all started right here with the Dallas County Divert Court.
Well, you're talking about diversion. We've read how the Dallas County jail population is down sharply. The number of arrests is down sharply. County's happy they're saving money. But I don't know if there's a perception that people are safer. Is crime getting enforced? Does something need to change about the way the law is enforced in Dallas County?
Well, let me just say this. I've heard Judge Creuzot mention that he closed 8 prisons, and that's not true. I have never seen one statistic to show that he closed 1. So I'd like to see that stat that shows that his diversion program, which I think is great, by the way, has actually closed a prison or 8 prisons. I think it's a group effort. In order to close even 1 prison, there are a lot of factors that have to come together. And I think that's one factor, but so many other pieces have to come together. When you mention, are we safer? One thing that makes us safer is not only making sure we get it right, convict the right person, because if not, the actual criminal is still out there committing crimes, but we also have to make sure we look at bail bonds. Bail bond, I want to address bail bonds as district attorney because bail bonds should not be based on money. I strongly believe that. I've seen people get stuck in the system, not because they're a criminal, not because they're violent, but because they don't have money. We have a system that's based on the haves and the have-nots.
What should it be based on?
I think it should be based on the facts of the case. I would like to have fact-based hearings like we do in juvenile court. I practiced juvenile law for 13 years, and the way they do bonds in juvenile law is not based on money. They have a hearing every 10 days to make sure that they know whether society can be safe if you're released. And the number one thing that the Texas Code says is whether or not you'll return to court, your ties to the community. I think we should bring it back to fact-based hearings so society can be safe, but people don't get stuck in jail unnecessarily.
I want to hear what John says.
Well, facts based on risk. We have models now that are going across the United States on bail bond reform, and we can easily adopt those here. And number one, I never said I closed 8 prisons. I said the concept was expanded to allow for the closing of 8 prisons. That's a state statistic. For example, right across from the Crowley Courts building is one of them that closed right there. But as far as bail bond reform is concerned, I've been working on that since 2015, and I agree. We should do more. The DA's office should support it. I will support it, and we should move forward on it. It should be fact-based, based on the individual, whether they're a risk to not show up to court or not.
We have 60 seconds left here. I want to ask you guys briefly this last question. I want a brief response from both of you. Cal Gilson from SMU said the issue in this race, the mechanical issue in this race, is whether a black Republican can pull a significant share of the black vote in southern Dallas County against a black Democrat. That's where the fight's going to happen. How hard will this be?
Well, I'll tell you this. Here's how I'll answer it. The treasurer of my campaign is Dr. Frederick Haynes, and he is the pastor of Friendship West. My personal pastor is Pastor Denny Davis, and a lot of people think we're related because my maiden name is Davis, but we're not. My dad's a pastor, and he's Davis. And just those 2 churches alone have 20,000 members.
They have a lot of people.
Pastor Ricky Rush, that's another 10,000 members. I'm a graduate of Prairie View A&M University, a historically black university. That's another 10,000 right here in Dallas County, not to mention Thurgood Marshall School of Law. That's another 10,000. I think that is going to be critical, getting the African-American vote, and I have a lot of support there, as well as my sorority sisters, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority.
That's where it's going to play out, Judge Creuzot. How hard is that going to be for you?
Well, I think it won't be as hard as we think. I have significant support across the Democratic community. We've gone to many groups to seek endorsements, and I've been endorsed by almost everyone. I think we share a core endorsement with one. And I think that I have support across the southern community also, because I've gone and knocked on doors, talked to people, visited with voters, and our numbers show very well there across all sectors of the community. We've worked hard, and I think that I have the winning formula to beat the Republican candidate in November.
All right, this March primary is March 6th. Elizabeth Frizell and John Creuzot, thanks for coming in. Good luck to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.